All right, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name is Aaron. What we're about to go over is extremely bullish for Bitcoin. Make no mistake about that. Before we get into it, I need you to understand the magnitude of what's happening because Bitcoin is going to thrive because of the times we live in. And the times we live in is a time when governments and central authorities have way too much power over many things, especially our money. And Bitcoin, for the first time, we have a hedge against this. So I consider myself extremely lucky that I understand the value and use case that Bitcoin presents. Many others don't, but because Bitcoin has no single point of failure, it's decentralized, it's the hardest money the world has ever seen, Bitcoin isn't going away, and people are going to understand that it's a better alternative than, say, something like this. So let's get into it. This is extremely recent news. Keep in mind, this just came out late Tuesday night. By the time you're watching this, it's Wednesday, but all this stuff happened this week. I'll give you the outline, the headline first. Basically, the Federal Reserve Tuesday, yesterday, injected $53 billion into the U.S. economy. That same day, they released a statement saying that by Wednesday, today, they might dump another $75 billion. We'll see. We'll see how everybody feels. Anyways, let's talk about why. Let's get into this. So the reason for this is that 2 days ago, on Monday, a series of rates in the financial markets spiked, creating worry that the Federal Reserve was losing control. This forced the New York Federal Reserve to come to the rescue with a special operation aimed at easing stress in financial markets. As rates strategist Mark Cabana said, what the Fed did is unprecedented, at least in the post-crisis era. We haven't seen something like this happen in over a decade. In fact, this last occurred in 2008. Altcoin Daily team, you need to keep in mind, this is exactly what Bitcoin was made for. So let's dive into the details. So this all happened this week. So on Tuesday morning, the New York Fed launched what's called an overnight repo operation, during which the central bank attempts to ease pressure in markets by purchasing treasuries and other securities. The goal is to pump money into the system. The goal is to pump money into the system to fix the problems. The first attempt by the New York Fed, these are the details, the first attempt by the New York Fed was actually canceled because of technical difficulties. Minutes later, the New York Fed successfully injected $53 billion into the system. Then immediately after that happened on Tuesday, then late Tuesday, right after they did this, the Fed announced plans to hold another repurchasing agreement operation on Wednesday, which is today, that would aim to repurchase up to an additional $75 billion. The rate spike that caused all this, basically it hit 5% on Monday, which is up from this is the problem right here. So the rate spike hit 5% Monday, which is up from the 2.2% last week, which is well above the target range that was set in July by the Federal Reserve. The surge continued into Tuesday with the overnight rate hitting a high of 10% before the New York Fed stepped in to print money. So basically what happened is that this allows banks to quickly and cheaply borrow money for short periods of time. This type of market broke down during the 2008 financial crisis. So the question is, why did this happen? And there are some theories. So for instance, Cabana, the Bank of America analyst, which I referenced earlier, blamed the spike in the overnight lending rates on the Fed basically underestimating the amount of cash needed to keep the financial system operating smoothly. The Fed just made a policy mistake, Cabana said. There is not enough cash in the banking system for the banks to meet all of their liquidity and regulatory needs. I'm not that worried because the Fed will fix it. Yeah, of course. So is this the return of quantitative easing? Well, no matter the cause, more Fed action may be needed, including additional temporary New York Fed operations. They may have to do the same thing tomorrow morning, said LaBosse. It's like a Band-Aid, Cabana said. As a long-term solution, Barclays and Bank of America expected the Fed to begin expanding its balance sheets again by purchasing treasuries. The Fed's bond buying program, known as quantitative easing, or QE, was launched during the financial crisis to keep borrowing costs extremely low. Cabana doesn't think the Fed is going to call this quantitative easing, though he said it will work the same way. The central bank will grow its balance sheets by purchasing treasuries. The Fed won't admit this, Cabana said, but it looks and smells an awful lot like the monetary authority is financing the fiscal authority. Yeah, there's probably a lot of things the Fed won't admit. Here's the thing. There are events lining up in the world today. Not just world events, but technical things going on with Bitcoin, more on-ramps being created, more people trusting Bitcoin that indicate to me that this bull run that we saw in 2017, it's going to pale in comparison to the one that's going to occur in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. That's what I think. Let's go over a few more random things that are just recent news today that are more bullish indicators. And by the way, guys, like this video. Let's get this video out there to as many people as possible. Check this out. So the US government has launched a lawsuit against Edward Snowden. He's writing a book and they're trying to block his money. And this was Edward Snowden's response just 9 hours ago. In conclusion, this is good for Bitcoin. Edward Snowden has 4 million followers. It's just more and more people are realizing the value and trusting Bitcoin as money. Check this out. The Luxembourg Times just broke this story. Deloitte is allowing their staff the option to pay for lunch in Bitcoin. This is a pretty radical thing compared to, how people thought of Bitcoin just a few years ago. Or this. We tweeted this out too. Hey, this is a reminder. They're lying to you about cryptocurrency. At first, they're going to say they're going to ban their customers from purchasing cryptocurrency, but then just a year or two later, Wells Fargo, just like JP Morgan, just like a lot of other institutions, banking institutions we're seeing, they're launching their own stable cryptocurrency in 2020. Or how about this? Line officially launches the cryptocurrency exchange in Japan. They have 80 million users. So Japan, they've always been bullish on crypto. Or how about this? Segwit usage just broke 50% for the first time ever. So Segwit makes transactions cheaper. Segwit, it's all around better for Bitcoin. Now, the reason 100% of people aren't doing this is because when they do updates for Bitcoin, they soft fork it in. It's backwards compatible, so nobody has to adapt this for people to be able to transact. So people have to voluntarily take time to do this, and we're trending upwards with 50%. How about this? A little bit of local USA news. Wyoming is the cryptocurrency haven of the United States. According to their governor, who just officially proclaimed this, Wyoming is, far ahead, leading the US in cryptocurrency regulations. I'm going to leave you guys with a video from our friend Elliot at FUD TV when we interviewed him in San Francisco. And I'll leave you with this. I think this sums it up. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Hey, could you, just a fun question, top 3 coins that you're interested in at this moment?
Yeah, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin right now.
Woo!
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Those are my top 3. Honestly, Ethereum's gonna do well. Their DeFi ecosystem's cool. And yeah,
Yet you develop on the Tron blockchain.
I develop on Tron, and as a developer, super great environment. It's free, it's cheap to deploy on, it's free transactions, low energy cost, and it just lots of Solidity devs in the world because of Ethereum, and so there's a lot of talent to fish from in that pool. However, there are struggles with Tron. I'm not fully convinced as an investor that putting my money in Tron as a large position right now is going to pay off the same way that Bitcoin is going to pay off. So as all of my crypto dollars, Bitcoin's taking the lion's share. I still have some Tron, still have some Cardano, still have some EOS, still have some Ethereum, still have plenty of Stellar, but those, my ontology position's almost gone. But yeah, I still have hope for these projects, and I hope everybody does well. I see new projects pumping, but right now, I believe it's a very magical moment. I think the stars are aligned for Bitcoin, and I think we could see $100,000 Bitcoin. I think we could see $1 million Bitcoin in the next 5-10 years, and I think it's going to be, we're all just going to look back and wish we had more Bitcoin. the supply and demand curves don't necessarily indicate that we're gonna need more TRX. I think people will pick up TRX and sell TRX, people will pick up Ethereum and sell Ethereum, and same with the other tokens, but when it comes down to it, everyone's gonna want more Satoshis in the 10, 20-year future, and I think it's just a great time to be involved in Bitcoin.